we are. We have about 72 hours left of session, I'm told. I haven't done the math myself. And as is typical, a lot of things need to get done in a very short period of time. When you look at legislative sessions throughout history, and I've been here for 9 biennia, it's always comes down to the last couple days where you think, like, how can that much stuff get done in that period of time? And it does. So I think the framework deal that we announced last weekend was a good start. I definitely got our education folks, health and human services, public safety, and tax groups working. Tax, I think, is almost concluded. I think they have a little remainder piece that they're working on. And then I know education has been trading offers back and forth. They're at least on offer number 3 on each side. I know that health and human services is at least on offer 3 on each side. Public safety, there's been a couple of offers. Leadership got involved a day and a half ago to try to speed things up in terms of chairs exchanging what they each deem to be full and complete offers. I got engaged in that, spent quite a bit of time working with the public safety team, getting alignment between the House and the governor so that we have one unified position as we negotiate with the Senate to hopefully speed that thing up. And then when we came to those other breakout areas, I can't remember what day that was. I believe that was Monday. So the rest of the areas have their target, and I think Health and Human Services has wrapped, Agriculture has wrapped, Broadband has made really good progress. And then state government still got some work to do. Transportation's at a bit of an impasse over the auto parts sales tax, it sounds like, which is an issue we negotiated for 2 days straight at the leadership level. It delayed the framework agreement for 2 days. We weren't able to get an acceptable understanding on the auto parts sales tax dedication. So we instructed the transportation folks that was not part of the deal. Nevertheless, the Senate still continues to insist that it is. So that is blocking progress there right now. Senator Miller and I have been in constant contact last night and this morning, putting together a list of all those blockers in the way of finishing in each bill area. And then we intend to get together and figure out what we can do to remove those blockers, give enough sufficient additional guidance so that the chairs can all close their bills. So I'm happy to take your questions.
Last night, in the Conference Committee for Health and Human Services, Representative Liebling said there is not enough time to get the bill done.
There is enough time. So my understanding is yesterday at the end of the day, they completed their policy portion of their bill. That'll be about 400 pages of drafting for the reviser to finalize. That is the by far and away the largest chunk of the Health and Human Services bill. We would expect the appropriations article would be about 75 pages and relatively easier to draft in comparison to the policy portions. So we do have enough time, but everybody has to get realistic, and nobody can believe that they're entitled to make 75% or 80% of all the decisions in any one budget area. Everybody has to kind of cut to the chase and understand that compromise means some ideas from both sides are in the final agreement.
Do you think the governor's going to hold on his no special session? Have you heard anything from him to indicate he might give you more time?
I have not had a conversation with the governor about that. I think that members have known all throughout the session that we have to finish our work by midnight on Sunday, and we still can. It's really, I think, a great agreement, 444. And I think that the tax bill, I have the best tax share in the country, so I can only presume that it will be a fantastic tax bill. We have really powerful things we can do in the area of the education budget and the health and human services and the public safety budget. So people just need to get those things done.
Is there a scenario in which you would pass the bills that are done and whatever just can't get together, you say, hold it over until next year?
No, the agreement was $4 billion in spending for $4 billion in taxes and $4 billion on the bottom line. And so the House, the trump card that the House has is all tax bills have to originate in the House. We will not send the tax bill until everything is done.
Blockers, how many blockers you got?
Well, I'll be talking to Senator Miller in a little bit about that. I would say any bill that's not done, there's a blocker of some kind. And so whether that's slow offers, incomplete offers, personality disputes, we'll see if there are some more issues that have to be resolved at the leadership level.
Are there any blockers among the chairs within your caucus?
Not that I know of. I'm sure that all of our chairs are behaving marvelously throughout all of the negotiations.
How close, where is taxes?
I think it's,
You're not gonna move it until the end, but where is it?
I think that they have everything resolved except for a little piece of one-time money in the first biennium that they're currently discussing of how to allocate. So, you know, we had an agreement about the distribution between the two biennia, so it's very important that the dollars stay in the biennia that they're assigned. And one-time money is just much more difficult to use than ongoing money.
So I know you said that you don't know the specific details within that tax bill, but what do you know of the components that are sure to be there? The income tax rate reduction, social security, renters credit, what do you know of that?
Well, when we reached the agreement at the leadership level, Senator Miller and I each agreed to instruct our chairs that the House's highest priority going into the tax negotiation was the renter's credit, which you can think about as property tax relief for folks who are lower income seniors and folks with disabilities. The Senate's highest priority was a rate cut, and so we instructed our tax chairs that those two elements had to be in the final deal. And beyond that, we did not give them any direction.
Are Waltz checks in any form as part of this?
That was not a part of the instruction. Certainly because there's one-time money and there's limited tails, that was something that we thought would be in play.
When do you put on the robes and meet as the gang of three? I mean, is that what you're gonna, well, you don't, I thought you guys wore robes. But you say blockers, that says to me that you're compiling a list of things that maybe the three of you have to resolve. Is that accurate? And if so, when does that start happening?
Well, like I said, Senator Miller and I have been in constant communication. And so we've been trying to clear those blockers as we go here. We don't have the ability to take over these bills. The whole idea that things would get sent up to leadership and resolved, we have no more tools in our toolbox than the chairs do. And so it is our sincere desire that those folks finish that work. We do not have the capacity to manage all of the remainder of the bills.
What issue area is in the worst shape right now?
I would say right now that it's probably a tie between public safety, health and human services, and E12.
That's kind of a lot.
Not transpo? I thought you said you thought transpo was.
Oh, that one's in the tie category, yeah, that's pretty.
So that's half, that's like 4 billion of the 8 billion. That's in bad shape.
Well, what you could say is that, first of all, your math's a little off, but what you could say is that it's late in the session, but there's another way to look at it, that it's early, because you know, typically the last Friday of the session when the leaders are on Almanac, everybody's hoping they can go on Almanac and kind of like announce like, we finished it all, it's ready, we're done. That's not always the case. It's very common that it isn't until later Friday night or sometime on Saturday that everything gets cleared out.
Didn't that happen once?
I don't know.
Yeah, that happened once.
You still think even with all those areas being equally in rough shape, that there's time before
There
Sunday?
definitely is time, because I think what happens is, the chairs on each side, you know, they're passionate, right? They spent all session, they spent 4 months working on their vision for this area. And now all of a sudden, they're supposed to jettison, more than 50% of their vision and make a deal with somebody who has a completely different vision. And so I think people hang on for a long time to their original vision of what this bill should be before they realize that if they don't compromise, they're not going to have a bill.
When does there's time shift to there's not time?
I don't want to say a specific time because, you know, this all falls on the shoulders of the revisers. And they typically bear an unfair burden this time of year, even under the best of circumstances. they're amazing, and they often can do things that you wouldn't think that they could do, but there is a limit.
Are any of your people going to try to make an appearance at the DFL convention, or is that off?
I don't know that anybody is planning to attend. The statewide candidates will be endorsed there, and I'm not aware of anybody in my caucus who's asked for a time to get away. Except for, I think, Representative Becker-Finn will be introducing the lieutenant governor.
Madam Speaker, where are the biggest areas of sticking points on E12?
I can also say Representative Kaliher will be introducing the governor, nominating the governor. So go ahead.
Apologize. Where are the biggest areas of contention on E12 at this point? The toughest areas?
I would say many, just the overall distribution of the money at this point. Senator Chamberlain would like to allocate 100% of the funds to his liking. I think that is the biggest blocker right now.
Is the formula in the equation at all?
I don't know.
The governor had talked about that, about wanting additional money on the formula. And that'd be something that Senate Republicans wouldn't want to do.
What I know of the E12 negotiations is that our highest priority is mental health supports. Senate's highest priority seems to be evolving to the special education cross subsidy, which is something we also support, and the Senate had no position on before. And I think that right now they're proposing to use nearly 100% of the target for that. So,
What is the motivation behind that, Madam Speaker? Is it just to keep it out of the formula?
I think you'd have to ask Senator Chamberlain. It's his offer.
I know we're not supposed to speculate on motives, but do you
No,
have any thoughts on that?
No, I have no idea. I think it's a positive move from the initial $30 million investment in a program that wouldn't move the needle on literacy statewide. So I think it's a positive development, is getting closer to a final agreement.
Can you say anything on bonding? We haven't heard much about what's going on there.
I just talked to Representative Lee on the way over. He said they're making good progress. He continued to ask for a higher cash target, and so I know that they're working hard. Senator Bach was on the tax committee as well, conference committee, and he let Representative Lee, he wasn't fully available until the tax bill wrapped, and I think they were working together some this morning, and a little over the last couple of days, but I expect that will pick up now that it sounds like the tax work is pretty much done.
He wants more than 150 million.
He does.
Do you think it's fair to all those communities and interests that have put forward projects and hosts of legislators that this is going to pop just out of nowhere and suddenly be ready for votes within the next two and a half days?
It won't pop from nowhere. I mean, Representative Lee has had extensive hearings on all the proposals that are in our proposed bill. So, we've had several conversations about all those projects, and people have had the opportunity to come in and weigh in. I can't speak for the process that's happened in the Senate. I'm just not familiar with it.
But this thing won't be aired in any real fashion. I mean, it'll just come out of nowhere. People who are left out won't have a chance to appeal to get back in.
But they've been heard, right? And so this is why you elect representatives and senators. So they take input, they draft bills, they carry the bills through the session, and then at the end, they have to decide what's in and what's out. And this sorting process in the bonding area is just really complicated, but there shouldn't be anything in there that you haven't seen before and the members of the public have not come in to testify about.
Time for one more.
Regarding public safety, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but have you been able to break the impasse over what Limmer and Mariani were going through yesterday about what's a real proposal and what's not?
I don't know if I could comment on whether I've broken the impasse. What I can say is that the Minnesota House DFL believes that to accomplish public safety in Minnesota, we need both investments in crime prevention and we need investments in fighting crime. We think the areas in fighting crime that need the most attention, that's documented that they need the most attention, are investigative resources. We don't have as high of a case closure rate as we should, and what we're hearing from law enforcement communities is they don't have the resources in that investigative area. So our proposal is strong in that area. But we also know there's data to establish, and Representative Frazier has carried this argument well throughout the session, that investments in community crime prevention efforts make a big difference. And so we believe that the package should be balanced on crime prevention and fighting crime.
Madam Speaker, what do you think the chances are, because it sounds like you're closing in on a tax deal. What are the chances that that's what gets done and that the other 4 billion of the spending doesn't get done? Because Republicans might not care whether that gets done or not, except for except for public safety maybe.
Yeah, there's no chance, because the House will pass the tax bill once everything else is complete. I think Shannon had one more question, then we should probably wrap up.
I just wondered if there's a path for legalized sports betting.
I don't think so. I think that the Senate put a monkey wrench in that last night with trying to include the racetracks. We know that gaming in Minnesota has been something that has lifted our tribes out of poverty. And when Governor Perpich entered into the compacts originally, that unleashed a transformational force of economic development in Minnesota's tribal communities. These racetracks are a business model. They have many forms of business investment available to them. And I do not think that they need to or should be a part of any discussion of gaming in Minnesota, or the expansion of gaming to include sports betting.
I have an easy one here. Do you have any assurances from Leader Doubt that once these deals are done, that they will progress in a measured way? Or, I mean, the minority can slow things down and run the clock out.
We had an agreement on all of the finance bills that, so long as I put his choice on the conference committee, that they would not filibuster, and they didn't. I've always found it reasonable to work with, well, not always. I have, this year, found it reasonable to work with Representative Doubt on all these kind of floor management issues, and I have no reason to suspect that's going to change.
Will it give you enough votes on the bonding bill?
His bonding lead is involved in all these conversations, so we would not bring forward a bonding bill that did not have 4 caucus sign off.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, hope that was helpful.
Thank you.